Today's episode is brought to you by Positively Productive Systems, whose mission is to be the antidote to your stress and to provide compassionate productivity resources and coaching that help you heal and achieve. Be sure to check out both free and paid resources at positivelyproductive.com/resources.
I found that the journaling was really allowing me to grow in my self-awareness. And the more aware I became of myself, the better I was able to get an accurate perspective of the situations that I was in, my thoughts, my processes. It just was a safe place that I could go and work out all of these things and ask myself the questions that are hard and ugly, and that we tend to try to run away from. So it became this really interesting challenge. And every little aha moment became this reward. It became this amazing feeling physically, but it also led to these amazing things in my life, these amazing changes that I was able to make.
You're listening to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Latimer, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a coach certified in time and stress management, helping clients make space for what matters most in their lives. Join me each episode and we'll talk about decluttering, stress management, habits, personalized productivity, gratitude, and so much more. I understand the overwhelm of life because I'm a wife, mom to kids and cats, and a former caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. Welcome back to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa, and today we're talking about journaling. Have you ever tried it? And if you did, was it for personal development or business growth? And did it work? In this episode, we're covering how you can use journaling strategically to move the needle forward in your business. My guest, Lisa Latimer, is a multi-passionate entrepreneur and homeschooling mom, helping women in business turn their personal growth journey into rocket fuel for their business growth with her method of strategic journaling, and she shares it with us today. Prior to using journaling for business, she used it to self-heal from toxic relationships. She shares that story and the shift she made to use the same technique for business. It all comes down to mindset. We need to get curious and get clear on what we're doing and why. And answering those questions through journaling is a safe and sacred space to do so. Lisa shares how journaling works and why it works, and she mentions Scooby-Doo when she describes this. I wonder if you can guess the connection. Definitely listen for that. You also don't want to miss her tip on the single most effective journal prompt you can start with today. We also talk about why clients struggle with journaling. Hint, you may not be doing it the right way for you, and how to make it your own. She offers great advice on this, and I'd like to add some of my own right now. Journaling is most effective with writing, so pen and paper are your strongest options. If you're a technophile like me, you could use a Rocket book or something similar, or GoodNotes with a pressure-sensitive stylus to achieve similar neurosensory benefits that you do when writing on paper. If you are using pen and paper, I strongly recommend purchasing some tools that make the process a positive or, dare I say, luxurious experience for you. For example, I use a Uniball Signo pen, and I prefer bold black ink, and I use the Leuchtturm 1917 journals. I'll link to those in the show notes for you if you'd like to see which ones I use specifically. And I do this because I love the feel of it, and it encourages me to keep this habit. If you'd like to fine-tune this habit and try Lisa's approach, I'd be delighted to support you. You can message me on Instagram at positively_Lisa or book a free connection and assessment call with me at positivelyproductive.com/call. Welcome, Lisa Latimer, to the Positively Living Podcast. I am so excited to have you on today.
Thank you, Lisa. It's so great to be on with you.
Well, before we dig into the wonderful world of journaling, would you please start by telling us a bit about who you are, who you help, and what makes you light up?
Absolutely. I am Lisa Latimer. I am a business mindset coach, and I also am a homeschool mom. I tend to work with women, but I do have a few men sprinkled in there who are pretty awesome. But I work with women and men who are in the process of either starting or growing their businesses, and they're dealing with a lot of strategy, right? They have a lot of strategy in their lap, and they're wondering why it's not moving the needle. And so they come to realize they're at that point in their journey where they're like, aha, it's not that the strategy isn't working, it's that I'm not working the strategy. And that boils down to mindset.
It all goes back to mindset, doesn't it? I'm amazed at how many times I work with a client. They've come to me to be more productive. And really, what we start with is the mindset. It's so incredibly important.
Isn't it? And it's incredible also how long it takes, even us, just starting, getting to that point of realization
Mhm.
that strategy isn't always going to save you.
Right. Because I mean, it's the application of it. And this is where you and I definitely overlap. And we've talked about this is in taking the action and kind of figuring out what works for you. And I've, been a fan of journaling for a long time, but it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I love how you use journaling for yourself and your clients. And maybe we could start a bit with how you came to it and your story with that. And then we can dig into what it really is and how we can walk away applying it like more effectively today.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I started using journaling because in my 20s, actually from my mid teens to 20s, I was in a couple of really, really toxic relationships. And I mean, self esteem wise, I got completely tore up, left me with like crippling fear of failure and so many weeds to have to kind of cut my way through. And I started getting into the personal growth and development space, and journaling was something that was always mentioned. And oddly enough, I was also wanting to lose weight at that time because I was in a little bit of a depression and I had put on some weight. And so journaling, like, keeping a food diary or journaling was another layer in that as well. So I found that the journaling was really allowing me to grow in my self awareness. And the more aware I became of myself, the better I was able to get an accurate perspective of the situations that I was in, my thoughts, my processes. It just was a safe place that I could go and work out all of these things and ask myself the questions that are hard and ugly, and that we tend to try to run away from. So it became this really interesting challenge. And every little aha moment became this reward. And every aha moment led to the desire for another aha moment. So it kind of becomes this really rewarding chase that allows you to create magic in your life and in your business. And so since it worked so well for me in my personal life, I said, let me see what I could do with it in my business. And once I started applying it to my business to see why, after spinning my wheels for 3 years, getting no clients, doing all the things, the blogging, the podcasting, the SEO, the Pinterest marketing, throwing spaghetti at the wall, which we tend to do at the beginning, why none of it was working, I started to get that self awareness again around what my thoughts were and how I was actually pumping the brakes on my business. And what it essentially is in a nutshell is the strategic journaling gets you to ask yourself the right questions at the right time. And as long as you're courageous enough to be completely honest with yourself in the answers, you get absolute magic that happens from it. Because about 2 weeks after I started the strategic journaling for my business is when I started getting my first clients dripping in, and then eventually the floodgates opening.
That is so powerful. The right question at the right time. I talk about productivity being doing the right thing at the right time, the right way for you. So this is again, it's finding those moments, but it's not just the moments, it's the honesty you're talking about. God, that's so powerful. Because the thing that you talked about in there that you were pumping your own brakes. We hear about self-sabotage, but it's like, but what is it? And how is it coming, I guess, manifesting, if you will, and how do we spot it? And so you were able to spot that through strategic journaling.
Right. And isn't it so funny? I know you know this and probably can relate to it yourself, but like that self sabotage doesn't always come out as self sabotage. It's not always dressed as self sabotage. It dresses itself up as, well, I'm a perfectionist and I just want to be really well prepared and I want to make sure that I'm giving value. So it doesn't always dress up as, hey, you're sabotaging yourself. It dresses itself up as, hey, you're doing the smart thing, and you're doing the right thing by your clients and your audience. And I like to say that if perfectionism is kind of like a sundae, then the cherry on top would be the word just. Because how many times when we have a self-sabotaging thought do we say, well, I just need to do this? Like there's always just one more thing that we tell ourselves that we need before we actually get in there and do the thing that's going to actually move the needle in our business.
That is such a good tip right there. That's a great takeaway for all of us is when are you using the word just? I also like the word should. I mean, I don't like it, but I see it as a really good sign where you're like, wait, ask a question there. What's happening? Speaking of just, I just, time wise, that is, had a conversation with a client, exactly what you're talking about. Okay. It was I need to give all of this to my clients. And it was like, do you? Are your clients asking for that?
Right.
Basically, it's like, who's driving the urgency here? And when you get, like you said, really honest, you're like, oh, wait, maybe that's me because it goes back to, am I enough? Will they think that I'm a value and all of the, see, it's all connected.
Yes, and it's funny that you mentioned that because that's one of the things that we cover in the program. One of the main areas is value perception and self-worth. So it manifests itself in so many ways. And like you said, wanting to kind of create a bloated program or a bloated offering because you feel like you have to overcompensate because it's not enough or you're not enough. So I love that you brought that up. It's so relevant and it's so common.
And I love that you are covering that because it's one of the biggest productivity busts out there. Because then you do get caught up in that perfectionism. You do get caught up in that, but I have to create all this other stuff. So I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. And then the not done yet is going to keep you, like you said, from moving the needle forward, from going anywhere with this. You're spinning your wheels instead. And that's so incredibly frustrating because it's not your intention, but somehow it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in there.
Right, absolutely. And the tricky part is that because you're doing like the busy work, you feel like you're accomplishing something. Like you feel like you're doing things just for the sake of doing, right?
Right.
So when you're just doing these things and you're going through this whole whatever and you're not journaling and you're just going day in, day out from one day to the next, it feels like you're doing, but then you're not receiving. And that I feel like is one of the things that leads to the frustration that you mentioned and the burnout because you're not aware of what's really going on. The effort is there, the action, the energy expenditure is there, but you're not getting the results because you're not being mindful about it.
Exactly. It's busy versus productive. And also, too, we bring habits into the equation, right? Because then you get into the habit of doing whatever it is you're doing without that self awareness, without that stepping back, without being reflective.
Yes.
You're going to miss whether or not, I mean, you can tell it's maybe working or not working. Like you said, if you're like, I'm doing all these things, but I'm not getting the results. Okay, not working, but why isn't it? That's where the reflection comes in. So, journaling, I'm sold. I've enjoyed it in a variety of different ways. But can we talk a bit more about like what this will look like? Maybe leading us through how we might even be able to take one step today. And also, may I challenge you to speak about this and the steps that we can take to people who are like, I've tried journaling and it frustrates me and I'm just not a journaler.
Oh, absolutely. And I have to tell you, some of my best clients are exactly those people. One of the steps that you could take to kind of start journaling right now is okay, you know how children are always like, but why? But why? And it can drive you up the wall. Take a lesson from your kids or any kids that you have around you and really embrace that childlike sense of curiosity and why yourself to death. And I know that we usually get fed the opposite advice, which is like, get out of your head. But I have always found that getting into your head in a mindful and an intentional way makes magic happen. It moves mountains. So, okay, I don't like going live. Why? Why don't you like going live? And then I like to say five whys, like five whys to boil it down to its barest bones of what it is that you're actually working with. It's like, I don't know, I'm going to date myself here, but Scooby Doo, how it would always be that big, scary thing chasing the crew. And then they take the mask off, and it's like, oh my God, it's our science teacher. What are you doing? You want to take the mask off of whatever it really is and see that it's really not this scary monster that you can't confront. It's something that you can identify and move through. So that's the biggest thing, is develop that childlike sense of curiosity and ask yourself why, until you get down to the most boiled down basic version of what it is. And to address those who don't like journaling or who have tried journaling and they are just like, it doesn't work for me. I fought the advice of journaling for so long. This is before I started using it for business, when I was going to use it for my personal life. I was like, oh my gosh. And initially it felt horrible because you're just left with these kind of pages of just stuff that you feel. It's kind of like, and this isn't the prettiest picture, but it's like emotional vomit on your pages. And then it's like, okay, I feel a little lighter, but now what? This is going to be another day tomorrow where I'm going through this same cycle and these same patterns and these same outcomes. So with the strategic journaling, first of all, it's guided. So you don't have to sit there and, it can be intimidating to just look at this blank page and just start writing. A lot of people don't know where to start, where to go with it. So it is guided, strategically layered. But with this type of journaling, you're not just having a place to kind of dump your emotions and dump your troubles. You have a place where you're building your self awareness, and you get the most personalized strategies that aren't always your typical business strategies, because it really is tailored to whatever comes up for you. And this is really the thing that kind of knocks my socks off about it, is that you could have a room full of people that get the same exact strategically layered prompts, and such different things will come up for them. And then you get the strategy options that fit you, not this, and we see this a lot in a lot of programs, this blanket strategy, this one size fits all strategy, this follow my blueprint strategy, which is something that I really want to change in the industry, is allowing people and their businesses to be the unique individuals that they are. So, for people who don't like journaling, I say I hated it too, for the exact same reasons that you do.
Well done. And may I hand you a mic so you can drop it? I think I pulled a muscle rolling my eye at the whole one size fits all thing, because I
I
can't
saw you.
stand that either. Right? Like, ah. But seriously, it sounds to me, the way you're describing this, and this is our big takeaway today, is not only the but why and the curiosity. How many times have we talked about this on the podcast? Curiosity lets the judgment fade away and keeps you in a space of understanding, seeking to understand as opposed to seeking to judge.
I love that.
So curiosity, I love that you brought that up. So with that, but here's the real key, I think, the crux to what you're saying with this five whys. And so this is just going to be, I'm spitballing here, but I think that maybe the journaling we've done before, you're right. You do like, here's all the stuff that's, whatever going wrong, or there's no structure to it. And there's a lot of stuff there. And then there was and you said the words, now what? And when you have that, then you feel like you're just left with a mess. It's like when you're decluttering a closet, you pull everything out and then you're like, oh, what have I done?
Absolutely. That's a great analogy. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
But that five whys that you're talking about, because it's okay to say, oh, say why? Why? But if you keep going to that point where you're like, oh, seriously? I have to answer that now? You dig to a new level. And now you start to see, oh, it's because of this, this, and this. That right there helps you create a strategy. Oh, you don't like to go live because you don't like to put on makeup or whatever. Or guess what? There's live audio. Or here's all the different options you have, so that you don't let this thing become a hurdle when it doesn't need to be, right?
Exactly. And that's exactly why I say instead of confronting this big scary boogeyman, you pull the mask off and you're like, oh, it's just my cat
Yeah.
chasing me. I can fix this. So yeah, I love that you put it like that. That's a perfect analogy. And I actually completely hate decluttering because my decluttering ends up with everything out of the closet and staying out of the closet for like 3 days.
Okay, so we'll talk. We'll work on that. I can help you with that. So, and now that you brought up Scooby Doo, I'm immediately thinking, and I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling kids. So now, so now it's like I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for this strategic journaling.
That's so funny.
That's awesome. Okay, so we have talked about basically what it will look like. And for those who struggle with it, are there any other aspects? So we've got the questions. We're asking the five whys is a great place to start. Are there any other like challenges that you find that people have with it or ways they can do it? Are there any other tips? Like it doesn't just have to be words, it could be pictures. Like how does this look? And what kind of flexibility do we have with this to make even the strategic journaling our own?
Right. Oh, and that's such a great question because we talked about blanket strategy. So, yeah, I don't, and it's funny too, because I don't like putting a lot of rules. I say, answer the questions in whatever way, like let it flow from you in a way that feels organic to you, in a way that you can make heads or tails of it. There are so many different ways that you could journal. I like a good brain dump sometimes. And then out of that brain dump, you could pick something that feels like, ooh, there's more there. Let me dig a little deeper here. Right. But I do like the idea of writing for this as opposed to coloring or drawing. I feel like that's a great for like an after effect. But with the journaling, we get down to a lot of it past incidences that have happened. I'll give you a perfect example. I had an amazing client who her parents, when she was little, they sold for Amway. They had their business was through Amway.
Mhm.
But they were super secretive about it, almost like they were embarrassed of it. And she had met another little girl whose parents worked for Amway, and the little girl was eating a bag of chips that are in that packaging, but you wouldn't recognize it if you weren't familiar with Amway. And so she was like, "Oh, your parents do that too." And the little girl had like this embarrassed kind of look on her face. So she said, "You know what? I realized that because my parents were ashamed of their business almost, and they weren't loud and proud about their business, I, in my own group, am not making offers. Like these women are here learning this thing from me. They choose to be here. And yet I feel like I'm not able to be more loud and proud." And that went hand in hand with another incident that was a specific childhood memory. So the writing and the recalling of these memories and understanding kind of the programming, and we could take 2 podcast episodes just talking about programming, right?
Mhm.
But understanding the programming and where these thoughts come from is so empowering once you see what it's really about. And I'd say 80% of the time, it wasn't even your bag to carry. It was something that you saw someone else dealing with, and it taught you what to do in that situation subconsciously. So it's just incredibly empowering. So I like the idea of writing it out, whether it's a brain dump that you come back to later, if it's just a sentence that you come back to later, or if you sit there and you just let it pour out of you and start connecting the dots and end up with 5 pages. It's whatever works for you, but allow it to be something that helps you make those connections and really unpack the thing.
I love that. So yeah, unpack it however you need to, but please unpack it and unpack it fully, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
All right. That feels like a great place for us to wrap up. Any other thoughts or points of inspiration as we move forward and we try to embrace this strategic journaling?
Just do it. Don't question it. Do it. It's something that everyone has access to. You can grab a notebook, you can grab a pen. I actually personally use a really pretty binder because I like to shift things around, add paper to sections where I need it, and make it your own kind of sacred space that you can go to that feels welcoming, that feels like a judgment free zone. Really embrace your journal as your own personal space where there's no fear, there's no judgment. You just kind of let it rip. But like you said, you let it rip fully, you fully unpack it and then start coming up with solutions, right? In the same thing. I like to divide it by situation and then solutions.
I like that. Okay, so unpack fully. Know that this is your own safe space. I love that you use the word sacred. I think that's such a beautiful word because it does indicate that it's not only safe, but it's precious.
Yeah. It's a relationship. It's getting deeper into a relationship with yourself.
Love that. Okay. Now, before we get into our fun rapid wrap up, tell us where we can find you online, Lisa.
Okay. So I actually let my website go because I don't need a website.
There
so
you
you
go.
But yeah, so you can find me on Facebook, Lisa Latimer, or you can jump right into my Facebook group, which is She's So Boss Mindset. It's a lot of fun. You'll get journal prompts that I drop in there kind of sporadically, along with amazing lives. Every Thursday, it's Own Your Shift. So we pick one thing that we make a shift on
That was
consciously.
shift.
Shift, yes,
I
own
love
your
it. I love
shift. But
it.
it's kind of like the other thing too, right?
Exactly. Love that.
Yeah, you get to own it and you get to turn it into something that works for you. So yeah, that's where you can find me online.
Okay, I'll make sure to have those links in the show notes. All right, you ready for this rapid wrap up?
I'm excited.
Okay. All right, please fill in the blank for me. A song that lifts my spirits, makes me dance is?
Okay, so it's called Kings and Queens by Ava Max. I get so pumped up when I hear that song.
Okay, I love that. All right, how about a quote or a mantra that inspires me that I love to share?
That you're your greatest asset. You don't have to chase things. You don't have to chase the next shiny object. You are your greatest asset.
I love that. Okay, and how about a resource? It could be a book or an app, anything that's made my life better.
I would say app wise, I am such, and I know it's old already, but I am such a fan of Trello and Trello boards.
Just because it's been around doesn't mean it's not still awesome. I had
Oh,
Taylor Mobley on talking about the magic of Trello, and she's still locked in as a business strategist, loves it. And I'm a fan too. I mean, it's not for everyone. And that's the whole point of having discussions on the show about this. But for some of us, visually, it's great for people who like Kanban boards and like to move stuff around. It's
yeah.
fantastic.
And add things. I love, like you said, like the flexibility of it. I just love it. I love anything that's flexible.
Yeah, yeah, I could tell with the binders and anything. Do you still have
Yeah.
a trapper keeper? I don't want to.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And last but definitely not least, Lisa, what are you grateful for today?
I'm grateful for good health.
Hmm.
Grateful for good health of my good health and the good health of my friends and family.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am grateful for you and that we connected and that you came to share your wisdom today. So thank you, Lisa, for shining your light in this world and for sharing it with us.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate you so much, Lisa. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious and limited, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. If you have feedback, questions, or want to schedule a chat, head to positivelyproductive.com/connect. And if you are looking for any of the resources referenced on the podcast, from books to products to training and more, go to positivelyproductive.com/resources.